Chair, thanks. The gentleman. Recognize the gentleman from Iowa, Mr. King, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Commissioner, I thank you for coming here to testify. I think this important discussion this country is having right now about our reliability within our government agencies. And the first question from me would be, did Lois Lerner have any kind of a software package or any kind of electronic search that excluded or identified the conservative groups that far outweighed the non-conservative groups that had asked for the not-for-profit status?
Yes, clearly all of this started with the IG report noting that he called it improper criteria. They were totally improper criteria were used to select organizations applying for C4 designation for further review. Those organizations predominantly were conservative organizations.
Was it an electronic system that sorted out these applications? Was there any database, any matrix of any kind, any paperwork of any kind other than a stack of applications?
Now, my understanding is that there were ultimately developed beyond the lookout list for organizations with these names in their titles, and some of those were progressive names, but the bulk of the applications were conservative, and it was that list, that beyond the lookout list of any organization with these names in their title, had nothing to do with whatever their political philosophies or views were. It was if their name was in the title,
and who
they should then be selected for review.
Be on the lookout?
Pardon?
Who generated that be on the lookout memo?
It actually was, I'm not an expert in what happened before I got there, but my understanding was it was a back and forth by people at in Lois Lerner's office as well as the front line trying to figure out how do we handle these. And that list was developed, and there was an attempt to stop using the list, and then the list got used again.
And we know that the IG confirmed the targeting that had taken place as well. I'd ask you, have there been any firings, dismissals? Have you identified anyone within the IRS that had violated law or policy or protocol in such a way that it was worthy of termination?
As I noted, all of this happened well before I got there. Is why I'm here. But as I stated, starting with the acting commissioner down, everyone in that chain of command is gone.
Everybody in the chain of command is gone. Were there any remaining culprits within the IRS today?
None that anybody has pointed out that had a responsibility. The leadership and the responsibility are gone.
And if you identified them, that would be your duty going forward as well?
Yes.
And then I'd like to take you to Martinsburg, and having a little trouble understanding that. And that is, there were 424 tapes that were discovered at storage in Martinsburg, and a shipping center that I view as a warehouse of about 1,900 square feet. I know about how big that is. And so that night shift decided they would scrub those tapes, 422 of the 424 successfully. And can you explain to this committee how long it would take to process 422 tapes?
I don't know, but I assume it's a relatively prompt process. I would note the tapes actually had been sent to Martinsburg. They originally were in New Carrollton, and they were actually, a bulk of related tapes had been erased a couple of years before that. These were the remaining tapes. They were in a closet. The IG said they were identified as junk, and they were sent.
Do they process them one tape at a time or multiple tapes in batches?
That I don't understand. I don't know, but I think they're one at a time.
I think that's important, because how long would it take you to put a tape in, scrub it, even if it's a couple of minutes to do so, and another, and to get 422 of them done in an 8-hour night shift? Do you know the names of the individuals that process those tapes?
I do.
And they're still working for the IRS?
I can't talk about personnel, but the IG investigated them, clearly provided a report, and I can't say anything more about it.
But I'm not asking you for their names. I'm just saying, are they still working for the IRS?
My understanding is at least one of them is. But the IG noted it was an honest mistake, and we turned it over to our people to review it, and that personnel review went on. But the IG said they had made an honest mistake. It was not anything intentional on their part. They certainly didn't mean to interfere with anything going on.
The IG in their testimony before Congress seemed to be a bit incredulous that this string of coincidences could be put together in that fashion and have the voids and the vacancies of information that we have. I just reflect on this, Commissioner, is that if I would take the timeline of the IRS activities throughout this thing, and there are many of them sitting around in this committee today, and I'd overlay that over the timeline of the things that went on with Watergate, which one, I'll ask you, which one do you think would sound more improbable?
Again, that's a judgment I guess people could make. I think when there's a 17-minute gap and no intervening information provided, that's more significant than when there are tapes erased and 24,000 emails are provided from that same period. If we had some information about that conversations on the 17-minute gap, they'd be more comparable, but there was no information there. It was all lost here. The IG said 24,000 emails, but only 10,000 of them were from the gap period, and in that gap period, we produced 24,000, twice as many emails from Lois Lerner.
I would submit the opposite conclusion myself, but I thank you, Commissioner, and I yield back, Mr. Chairman.